Hi, welcome to today's jam session. My name is Josiah Shelley. If you didn't catch some of our past episodes, you might want to check them out. We're talking about things like digital strategy, what is strategy even to begin with, and then a growth framework we use to help businesses grow. So the purpose of this is to help marketing leaders grow their teams and grow their business. And so today the topic is about measurement. Even just yesterday I had a client talk to me about, well, how do I know we have the right KPIs? How do I know we're measuring the right things? Metrics that we can actually monitor to help us actually improve what we're doing from a marketing perspective. So I'm going to talk about measurement today. And the first thing I want to talk about is the difference between what is an input metric and an output metric. And because sometimes, especially if you're in the Google Analytics dashboard and you're looking at different things, you might not be able to distinguish what's an input or an output, and so I'm just going to break them down. Inputs are leading indicators. They're things that will help inform what success might come from your efforts. And so this is very simple to describe in a sales environment. So salespeople will never achieve their sales goals unless they make phone calls or book meetings. Booking those meetings and having those calls are input metrics that will help drive the outcome of either more revenue or more clients. So it's a very clear distinction between inputs and outputs, and we want to get to that point in our marketing. And often what I see today is a lot of focus on lag metrics, the outputs. So those are things like your conversion rate, you might look at your bounce rate, your click-through rate, CPC, cost per click, all of these metrics that you might see in a report, a lot of them are lagging indicators. And so we want to get more into leading indicators, and I'm going to talk about what those could be and how you could measure them. It shouldn't be all about measuring inputs like in the sales environment, all about measuring just calls and how many meetings you're booking. We still need lagging indicators, but we should establish some balance. And you on your team should be measuring what are those inputs, what are the things you can measure that will help indicate whether you'll achieve your marketing goals for the year. And so let's jump into an example. This is conversion rate. This is something you'd see very common in a Google Analytics dashboard. Something that really people love to watch is how their conversion rate is changing. This is an average, and like any average number, there are multiple numbers underneath that are informing that average. And so it's great to always monitor your conversion rate, but when things go up or down, you might not know why it's happening. And so you kind of need to know the underlying inputs that are driving that average. And so if we jump into what you might see in Google Analytics, this is one of the dashboards. So you're looking at the different channels where your traffic's coming from, organic search, direct, referral. Now if we focus on the conversions column, you're going to see very different conversion rates across these different channels, right from 11 up to 31%. And that 31% is on referral traffic. And so if I was trying to say, how do we get a balance in our leading indicators, our inputs, and measuring our outputs? I would say we need to measure how many actual referral links or relationships or partnerships are we generating that is contributing to our referral traffic. That's an input. So if you on your team, somebody has a goal of, I want to get like 10 new partnership or relationships where we're actually creating blogs and co-writing for them per month, that would be an input that would help drive the output, which is ultimately the conversion rate by that channel. Does that make sense? So we've got kind of our inputs and we have our outputs. And I just see this imbalance as we go in our marketing world. We've got these awesome reports, but they're like 10, 20 pages long, and most of them are all lagging indicators. We need to get into sort of those leading indicators that will help inform whether we're going to drive success or not. Because if our referral number goes way up and we can maintain that conversion rate, we'll see a big increase in that average that I showed you. And so those are good things. That's what we want, right? So I'm going to keep going through a few more examples. So maybe someone on your team is focused on user experience, or really understanding behavior and how people are moving throughout those different pages. So they might actually come to this page within Google Analytics that's actually showing the browser that someone is using, and the bounce rate and corresponding metrics. And so you can see that the goal conversion rate is changing by the browser. And so Chrome, Safari, Firefox, Safari and Firefox have a 7% lower conversion rate, and Chrome has almost 19 or just over 19%. So why is Chrome performing so well? If you wanted to give your user experience person some leading indicators, maybe it's the number of tests they're running per month. If you're not running any tests, how are you improving these output metrics that you're monitoring? And so you need to have that as, okay, how many tests are we actually running, guys, on perhaps these different browsers, or you could even see different tests by device. Now we know in marketing that we need to be constantly building our digital assets, like our website, landing pages, things like that. Audience building, we need to be reaching those potential people who could be customers online. And then audience nurturing them to purchase or to take the action that matters to you. And so this can be a little bit of a framework to say, okay, what are the input metrics that go into asset building that we can measure? For example, for your website, you might be looking at something like, if you've ever heard of rage clicks. So you can get some pretty cool tools like Hotjar or Full Story, and they have something called rage clicks. This is when you're like really annoyed with the website on your phone, you start hammering a certain spot on it. That's actually measured by this tool, and the more rage clicks you have, probably the worse your website user experience is. And so that could be an input that you're measuring, or maybe you run a survey and you have survey results every month, and some people are rating usefulness of your content out of 10. These are all leading indicators. You'll never achieve your marketing goals if you haven't been measuring those inputs that are actually driving the conversion or the goals that you want people to take. So then you might have rage clicks and survey, and then you'll see device performance and different things go up. So that's trying to create some distinction between what are the inputs we need to measure that things we're actually doing to drive the outputs. So that should help you start to think through, and is a great principle to think through on your team. Do we have that balance? Do we have that balance between those input metrics we're monitoring and measuring each month and the output metrics that are really kind of those averages or those lagging indicators? Both are important, and so the point of this whole episode is you need to think about both. And you need to really take your context into consideration, say, what are those inputs we need to measure? What are the outputs? How do we build a Google dashboard or something that on the fly you can get a little pulse of what's going on? So that's today's episode, all about measurements, figuring out what are the right KPIs, what are the right metrics. Any questions, always shoot me an email. I have all the links in the bottom. So I'll talk to you next time. Thanks.